Hello, my name's Kim and I'm a herbalist and storyteller. So you see behind me lots of brown bottles and they're full of my medicinal tinctures. Yet today I'm going to talk about a beverage that most of us drink daily in Britain. It's our national favourite cuppa, tea. And well, actually I think coffee's overtaken us in tea drinking, but it's still right up there. We drink, I think, an average of 3 cups a day of tea. So I wanted to talk to something that we find every day that actually does have health benefits for us. I'm just going to put my cup away though because I don't want to spill it. So Unilever in the last few weeks in January 2020, we've just been a news story, hasn't there, about tea. Some of their tea brands, maybe they're going to sell some of those off because there's been a reduction in tea drinking. However, let's just point out that black tea still is the most consumed tea. There's been an increase, I think, in green tea drinking, as well as these more sometimes sort of culinary, fruity and herby teas have come onto the market. So I've mentioned here black tea, green tea. Is there a difference? Let's just look at some very basic botany here. So the tea bush, the Camellia is the name, Camellia sinensis, is a shrub native to China, and from about 800 Common Era it's spread to Japan, and then there's been, through trading and all these plantation growths, it's gone around the world, like India and so on and so forth, and lots of our history of the West is bound up in tea trading. We might touch on some of that a bit later. So from maybe some of you will know quite well that the tea plantations, the shrubs, the top 2 or 3 terminal tips are picked. The tea pickers have to go around daily and see when they're ready to pick. Black tea is taken off, and that's taken through a fermentation drying process. So that's the black tea. Green tea, absolutely the same tips harvested, and that's steam dried, and so slightly different quality to that kind of tea. So with the green tea, we have that's more rich in the antioxidant properties. So those are things that are going to mop up free radicals in our body, and you might have come across research papers or magazine articles talking about green tea being good for anti-cancer programs and things like that. Whereas black tea is going to be richer in theaflavins. So there's a difference already. They're going to have slightly different properties on how they act on us. Just going back to the Unilever story, for example, just to draw in there, PG Tips, for example, is originally that came from its name was Pre-Gest tea. It was sold as Pre-Gest tea, and then there was Thai food, which I don't know who owns Thai food tea, but that's a derivation from a Chinese word to mean doctor. So we're getting indication that even early on people had in their marketing knew that there was obvious health benefits to it. Some of my patients, they often quiz me about what's the most, which out of tea and coffee has got the most caffeine. Well, interestingly, weak tea has more caffeine than strong tea, because caffeine in tea is destroyed by heat. So those people, who like that really weak tea, that proverbial dunk it in, dunk it out very quickly, they're actually getting more caffeine in their tea drinking. But what they're not getting is that tannin, that really dark colouring. So the tannins are very astringent, and these are things like like when you drink very strong tea, it puckers all your mucous membranes, it's drying things out, and so that's what we're calling, that's an astringent property. So if you're not overdoing that can actually have a very beneficial effect. Say when you've got mild digestive upset, it's going to put tone back into your digestive tract. So things like mild diarrhea or mild inflammation going on. Traditionally in Britain we have the notion, don't we, that someone's had a shock. You get it in all those black and white films. Someone's sat down and they're given a cup of sweet tea. So we know there's a carminative, a calming effect from taking tea. It does have diuretic properties. That means it will make your kidneys work and make you go and wee more. It's also got anti-inflammatory properties which overlap. That overlaps with that anti-infective agent, the antioxidant anti-infective agents, and the astringent agents. So I've used it in the past, for example. You know, when you get very tired eyes, maybe even working on the computer a lot, you can take a cool tea bag. You're not going to put a hot tea bag on, you know, just place it over your eyes, and that's just a very soothing thing to do. Equally, it can soothe bites and stings. As you know, say you're out camping and there's not much to hand, but there's a discarded clean tea bag around. You know, you can put that over a bite just to give very immediate symptomatic relief. There's also talk of it being very useful for sweaty feet. Not something I've used it for. Maybe you have. Put it in the comments if you have done. So just make up your normal tea, put it in a bowl, put your feet in the bowl, and again it would be those astringent properties that are helping all the circulation in your feet there. So what else can we say about tea? Sort of historically, it's quite interesting to look at it. First mentioned, the tea houses come to London in 1650, and at the time, if you think about it, most of people's water that they would have access to, their well water, their river water, would be quite contaminated and an agent of infection. So people commonly drank small beers, small ales. So ales, I think, are alcoholic drinks made out of different herbs, whereas beer is when the hops come in, and a whole nother story there for another day. So tea comes in, and of course you've got a whole consumer outfit that builds from there. So the very rich, you know, you have the ladies of the house, they have their tea caddies and their whole tea ceremony, and they have the key to the tea chest. And likewise, you know, we get the rise of teapots. You know, it's the British, when we're doing our trading, the porcelain that comes back from China, you know, part of the ballast of the boat would be these teapots. And as we go through the centuries, we get people like Ben Jonson. He writes about one of his friends who drinks this fascinating plant. Has drunk nothing else for 20 years with all his meals. Then you get people like William Cobbett in his book of household economy. He gets quite agitated that too much money is spent on tea and too much on all the accoutrements, and that the poor are having to spend and waste too much money on it, and the women are sitting around drinking tea, chatting. I think that maybe is the most irritating thing to him. And within that, probably bound up, we've got all the stories of how highly taxed tea was. If we think about, there's all the implications with George III and the Boston Tea Party in the Americas, and the rejection of that colonial rule and the overtaxation by the British of the Americas, and how the Americas, what part of that was why coffee became their tea. Coffee became their drink of choice, not their tea of choice. So yes, and then you've got all the opium wars, which is all bound up with the tea trade. So worth going off and exploring those. So just to bring us back, that tea, all the research is indicating now that it's helping with blood pressure, looking at how it affects dementia. You know, it's good for alleviating, you know, the onset of dementia, implicated in reducing cholesterol. So these, you know, sort of longer term things. So very much embedded in my philosophy that if we're eating and drinking sensibly and in a balanced way, good stuff every day, then it's going to be having a beneficial effect on our overall health without us having to stress about it too much. So if you're interested more in the things that you can find in your kitchen that you can use for common ailments or to just support your general well-being, and even for sort of domestic little household emergencies, maybe think about going onto my website kimmurden.com and look at my events page, because I do run courses on introduction to herbal medicine, and also little evening talks on household medicine. I think I've got a leaflet here. Oh no, I've got a leaflet here. So yeah, the kitchen medicine chest is my next one, and that's going to be in April. So look out for that. Yeah, just checking that's for April. So thanks for listening. Hope that's given you a taster for not just your tea, but expanding our understanding of what herbs are. Because as a medical herbalist, I say a herb is any plant material ranging from the root, right up to the seeds and the berries, that can have a medicinal impact on our well-being. So thanks for listening, and see you again.